Exclusive to the members of the National Golf Club of Canada and the Ben Kern Learning Centre, I'm happy to present Team Canada head coach, Derek Ingram.
Hi, national members. I have a new guest today who I'm talking with. He is our men's head coach for Team Canada and developed some awesome players all the way up to some of the Canadian stars we're seeing on TV nowadays. Derek Ingram, thank you very much for coming on this today. Tell us about yourself. Give our members an idea of who you really are.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me first, Nick. And yeah, I coach golf for a living. I have my entire life. And I oversee our amateur team and our young pro squad on the men's side for Golf Canada. And then I'm fortunate enough to coach two players in the PGA Tour full-time, Corey Connors and Taylor Pendrith, a recent winner. I also coach Aaron Cockerell in the DP World Tour, and I coach Mackenzie Hughes for 12 or 13 years. And the other, I don't currently coach him anymore, but he's like a son to me. And the other players that I helped get to the PGA Tour, and certainly I'm really tight with, are Nick Taylor. I coach him on the Corn Ferry Tour on our junior team and our amateur team. Coached Adam Hadwin for a short period of time, Adam Spencer for many years, almost 10 years, and love all those guys. So that's kind of what I do. I have several players in the Corn Ferry Tour now, and yeah, I'm grateful for where I am. I love what I'm doing. I would do it for free, but just don't tell anybody.
Yeah, I hear you. No kidding. So, your style of coaching is really developing a golfer. But, with my membership, we play a lot of golf. A lot of golf is what Golf Canada would consider a tournament score, because not only is there a scorecard, there's no gimmies, everything matters. For a golfer that, has played for a long time, let's call it that 15 to 20 handicap range. Where would you go with them to help them develop their game? Like right off the bat, you see them on the range. What are you doing?
First of all, I'd love to get guys to use stats programs. I think for themselves and for a coach, just to be aware of their top priorities is super key, because maybe they love to play and they don't love to practice. But if they do a little bit of practice on their top priority areas, they can get a lot better really quickly. And when you're getting better, you're having even more fun. So I love stats programs. There's a number of them out there. They don't have to take all day. They can take 5 or 7 or 8 minutes to enter, and they give both you, the coach, and them, the athlete or the player, great information like, hey, let's target this area first. It's my biggest area to get better. And so that's one thing. I also think
Could you name a couple you like?
Yeah,
shot by shot.
I've used shot by shot forever. It's just changed. I think U swing or but if you Google shot by shot, I've used that for 25 years. I know Mackenzie Hughes and Corey Connors would have 600 tournament rounds in there, maybe 700 tournament rounds, not fun rounds. Those are actual tournament rounds over the course of 15 years, which is incredible. Same with Taylor Pendrith, by the way. Also, we use Upgame a lot with our national team players. We're starting to use it more with some of our players. Upgame's fantastic. And then I'm like, Nick, you'd know a bunch as well. Like Golf Analytics is great. Arcos has some great stuff, and I don't know, you may have some partners you want to mention as well. That you use.
We had Scott Fawcett from Decade talk about stuff, so his app does something similar too. I love to get my members in this. I'm going to do more educational material for them to see what's out there, so they can start to do this stuff themselves. We're kind of scratching the surface on that right now, but I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, I was going to say lazy, but if you're time crunched, shot by shot is the best. You can literally enter a score and all the data you need in 5 or 7 minutes, and it's rich for a coach in terms of mining. Hey, how can I get better? And so you're going to glean a bunch of like, oh, here's my top priority, here's my second top priority. So, and both for the player and for you as well as a coach.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. So stats is one thing. Sorry to cut you off on that. Where else are we going with that?
Well, I like to get a big bang for our buck in golf in terms of, again, so if they may not love to practice, but they love to play and they want to still get better, you need to be in and out, like, and be very efficient in your practice. So the most important area for everybody is to drive the ball better. They got to drive the ball further, and it probably helps out there at the national as well. But driving the ball far and eliminating errors off the tee is just so critical. So 1 and 2 shot mistakes. So you're trying to blend that in. There's some holes where maybe you can hit it as far as you possibly can, and you don't have to worry about a mistake. But other times you need to eliminate those 1 and 2 shot errors off the tee. It's just critical that you're not, pumping balls out of bounds and in the water all day long. So that to me is the number one priority. And then into approach shots, same thing. Approach shots into the game or approach play. Again, eliminating mistakes, 1 and 2 shot errors where you're, hitting in the water out of bounds, or in just ridiculously deep bunkers where there's a 0% chance of getting it up and down. So those are the type of things I'd look like for quick things for people to be aware of. And then I guess the last thing, if we're looking for quick things, some of these are from Tiger's, back in the good old days, he had those 5 things he never wanted to do, but eliminating 3 putts is really critical as well. And 4 putts at the national, so eliminating those, having great distance control and being good inside of 5 or 7 feet. So you're almost never 3-putting. Those are the big 3. And if you want me to throw a last one in there, eliminating 2 chips, like where you're chipping and missing the green. I'm just going to allow you to make so much more money over there, Nick. You're just going to love this.
I love it. It's great. No, that's good. And that's kind of where I started. When I first got to the club about a year and a half ago, I threw out the Tiger 5. I said, guys, these are great ways on how we can eliminate big numbers. And I think that, the national will definitely bite you. You'll definitely, these guys have an 8 on the scorecard every day, and it doesn't even phase them because you can get that.
Yes.
But just trying to get them to understand that sometimes playing for bogey is just fine. And that type of behavior I found has gone really well.
Yeah. They'd be amazed, Nick, at how many even PGA Tour players, when they get in trouble, are trying to make a bogey. I mean, they would never think that. They'd be thinking, oh, they're trying to try this crazy shot and still make a birdie. Well, occasionally, but most times they're like, okay, let's eliminate double. Let's try and make a bogey and see if we can steal a par.
Absolutely. The double elimination is kind of what's on my mind every time I talk to players. So, we've got our course is active from 7 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, 10 minutes apart. We've got foursomes going off. And like I said, there's usually a match going on. For the golfer who's warming up, or for my team of pros, what do you think is the best approach pre-round for a golfer? And you could call these guys competitors because every shot counts.
Well, first of all, make sure they're roughly an hour in advance or 45 minutes. Get there in time to warm up your body and warm up your game. And go, see what the tour players are doing, but also, listen to you and your staff on some top priorities. So spend a little bit of time. I have players that I coach always start in the putting green. So maybe start with some short putts, but also work on the speed and get the speed of the greens. I know it's super important there, and spend 5 or 7 minutes there in the putting green. Then go warm up your long game, starting short to long, and then go long to short. But then after that, hit a couple shots, like play the first 3 holes on the driving range. I don't know what those holes are, but I'll use the first hole at Augusta. It's a long par. It's that long par 4 with the fairway bunker down the right-hand side. But every player who plays Augusta hits a driver off the tee down the left side, and then they're hitting roughly a 7, 8, 9 iron, possibly a wedge in for their second shot. So, and they'll actually do their pre-shot routine for those, a quick, pre-shot routine, maybe 15 to 30 seconds, picture that hole. And so hit that tee shot, and based on where your tee shot is, grab your iron that you're going to hit next, do your pre-shot routine again, and hit your iron shot. And I'd do that for the first 3 holes or the last 3 holes. If I had enough time, I'd do the first 3 holes and the last 3 holes. Again, we're trying to warm up both our physical game and our mental game, and doing your pre-shot routine and visualizing the shot and actually teeing it up like you're out there is going to help you get into the game way quicker. Instead of taking 3 or 4 or 5 holes to get into the game in your match at your local club, you're going to get into it right off the bat in that first tee.
I feel like you've just watched my last 6 videos on Instagram that I put out for the club, because that's exactly what I talked about. The clubs you're going to hit, the holes you're going to play, the yardages on the par 3s. And today was all about using vivid imagery and visualization for that pre-shot routine. So, we've had an environment on the driving range, or we have a range pro all the time. And I think that sometimes, depending on the message, it could hurt the golfer. If the golfer's, not hitting the ball very well, or just has a swing that's not going to make the ball go well, giving that golfer some type of technical or mechanical move is borderline useless, in my opinion. And it's a lose-lose, because the player not only loses, doesn't hit it very well, they lose faith in that pro who gave them you need to hinge it better, or whatever it may be. So, going through that call it personality of the golfer to kind of get them in the zone. I mean, I remember someone last year said, just tell me what to feel and I'll be great. And I said, happy, right? Not a swing thought, just like, be happy about being out here. And you're going to be surprised at how the bad shots don't feel bad. So I know as a tour coach, that's got to be something that's on your mind when you're warming a guy up to go play. It's keep it light, make sure that he's having fun, keep him in that good competitive spirit, right?
Yeah, I know. Good point there. Like a lot of people may think just the opposite of that, Nick, that we spend, I'll spend that hour and 15 minutes with Corey or Taylor giving him technical information and, trying to fix stuff in the range. And I feel like if I've done that before, if I'm doing that before they're going to play a tournament round, then I haven't done a good job the rest of the year. And, I know they will play worse if I'm just, throwing stuff at them at the last minute. Have a bit of a game plan. Obviously, if they've taken lessons from you or other players or other coaches that you have at your facility, or they know what works for them, know what works for you, and then go ahead and execute it. Don't try and look for unicorns or four-leaf clovers out there just before you go play and try and think you're going to strike lightning in the bottle. You probably have a plan or a method or something that works for you. Work that plan or methods, and then over time with a coach, build it, try and get better, maybe add a thing or two and delete a few, I actually think it's always critical when you add an item or two to make sure you delete an item or two, because the best players in the world can think about one or two things at most. And sometimes those might be feels and might be swing thoughts, but often they're just, they're swinging fairly free. They're fairly confident. They're trying to get a picture of the shot and they're going. So, yeah, I think a lot of people, you're right, would be thinking, oh, I need several swing technique thoughts today, maybe 3, 4, 5, or 6 before I get out there. And often that's a recipe for one of your worst rounds of the year.
No question. I totally agree with you there. I think that, a tour player or a better elite player can definitely go through with one swing thought. It could be a rhythm thing. It could be a technical thing. It could be, finish my turn or finish my finish, whatever it may be. But a golfer that has never broken 95 before, if they're looking to fix their swing, I think we both know it's not just one thing, but it's the time to do that isn't before they play.
No, God, no. And work with you guys and your staff to identify the one or two, three things that's going to make the hugest difference. Work on it a little bit, but then, then it's time to, you've trained it a little bit. It's time to trust it on the golf course.
Yeah.
I love that. You're training it and then you're trusting it. So the golf course is a place to trust, the range and getting lessons and coaching, and which I am a huge fan of. And I think it's a critically important to get better. Is a place to train that. And you want to train, and guys like you are keenly aware of, hey, I'm training this, but I want them to be able to trust it soon. So we're not going to spend all month or 3 months or 6 months in the train mode. We're going to be trying to transfer them from training to trusting pretty quickly. Yep. So yeah. And if you don't have anything, you're better to trust it and swing freely and be committed and do some of these things we talked about in preparation, warm up your entire game. Another example of that, might be go to the short game area. This is pre-round. You're working on some blocked pitches and chips, shots that you're going to probably get in the course, and a few bunker shots. And then you're actually going to take a ball or 2 or 3 and pitch it to a hole, go mark it, grab your putter and putt it out. Again, doing your pre-shot routine and your pre-putt routine and trying to warm up your routines that you're going to use in the golf course before you even get out there so you can hit the ground running.
I think that's a great thing, warming up the shots you're going to hit. And, I've been studying this golf course for 16 months now, trying to figure it out. I mean, even every day I play, I find myself in a new position where, I just look at the up and down shot and say, there's just no way, right? But when I look at our course from Google Earth and I look down and I take a look at all the greens, there's more sand around our greens than grass. So if our average golfer at the club might hit, call it 6 greens in reg, that means that there's 12 up and down shots. And my guess is 7 or 8 of those is going to be from the sand.
Wow.
So there's elements of skill that's required at our course that might not be required at, say, Glen Abbey, where there's not as many greenside bunkers. So
and I've been out to Glen Abbey a million times. If you're hitting 6 greens of regulation and you have 12, you might have 2 bunker shots, not 8, 7, or 8 like you could have at the National. So again, that's just knowing your golf course, knowing where you're going to be, and then practicing those shots so you're pretty good at them. And as we were kind of talking about earlier, the main goal out of the bunker is to get it out of the bunker on the green, or maybe out of the bunker 1 on the green number 2, and then 3 close enough that maybe you have a chance for an up and down. In that order: 1 out of the bunker, 2 on the green, and then 3 and close enough where you're going to have a good opportunity for an up and down. And knowing that about the National, I didn't know that. I've only played it one time, and it was a long, long time ago. That would be a real top priority for people, because a lot of 10, well, actually, quite frankly, a lot of 5 to 15 handicaps aren't good in there. they avoid those at all costs.
For sure. I mean, you could have a bunker that you can barely see the green, but you have to
Yeah,
get it just out and stop it before it hits a slope and takes
yeah,
the 11 stimp 30 feet away.
yeah.
So they're tricky. They're really tough. So I like that approach of trying to practice and warm up the shots you're about to play.
Yeah.
Now, you've had awesome success with juniors, bringing them from a certain level up to potentially Team Canada and beyond. One thing I haven't talked about with all the other guests are junior development.
Mm.
Do you take a different approach, or do you have your own unique approach for junior development that's worked for you?
Well, as you know from, I've known you, Nick, for a long, long time. I love to have fun with the players I coach. I think everyone's going to get a lot better if you're having fun. It's work, but it's fun work. So that's one thing I try and incorporate a lot, is to make sure we're having some good laughs out there, some good competitions out there. I like to measure players. I love to measure them, and I like to have a standard for them. And you know, and I don't think you can get the most out of your juniors at your junior program if you don't have a standard for them. And I always say, I've got high expectations for you because I believe you can achieve these, not because I'm trying to add any pressure. I have really high expectations for you because I believe you can achieve these. And it's not BS. It's the truth.
Mhm.
So, but in terms of developing juniors, I love coaching sessions where you spend time with them practicing. I think that's great. A player like you who can demonstrate at a high level, who can play the game at a high level. You can share your experiences, and sometimes it's not something you say, it's something you do that they steal. And they're like, oh, geez, I saw Nick and I were having a pitching contest, or the group was having a pitching contest. Nick was there, and there's 5 others, or a short game contest. And I saw him hit this shot, and I saw the way he prepared to hit the shot. And I was like, wow, all of a sudden they're copying that method and they're having a lot more success. And they may not even know they stole it from you. So it's the little subtle things you do. A lot of times we think it's these big giant bombshells we drop on people that make the biggest difference. And it's not. It's a small little things that you do that add up over a long period of time. So having fun, getting in there and demonstrating, competing with them, holding them to a high standard, just because you believe in them, are key things. I think it's a non-negotiable if they're trying to be competitive players to be putting stats in.
Yep.
And it's funny. I'll have some players. I'm rambling on here, but I'll have good players, Nick, sometimes, and they'll be 14, 15, 16, 17. They want to play college golf, and then they want to play professional golf. And they won't put stats in, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I don't need to. I know what my stats are. I don't need to do that. I'm aware of that." I'm like, "Okay, well." Then I'll open up shot by shot and I'll say, okay, well, here's some of the players I have in here. And I'm like, oh, let's click on, who do you want to click on? Oh, I want to take a look at Mackenzie Hughes. I click on Mackenzie Hughes. I'm like, oh, they're like, oh my God, 634 tournament rounds. And I'm like, oh yeah, we'll just separate out for all the rounds he shot 68 or less. And then it'll pop up like close to 100 rounds. And then I'm like, oh, let's go better than that. Let's go 65 or better. And so it might be like, 40 rounds or something. And we can see, hey, I'll say to him, this is what Mackenzie Hughes does when he plays great, not good, but great.
Mhm.
And then I'll be like, oh, let's take a look when he plays bad. And I'll go, okay, let's go 76 or higher. And they're like, oh, he won't have any in there. And same thing, I'll pull it up and he might have 70 rounds in there where he's played bad.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh, here's Mackenzie when we'll take a look at specific categories. Here's when he is when he's no good, when he's terrible. And I'm like, this is really valuable information, both for me, but Mackenzie, because we want to know, A, what do I do when I play great? And B, what do I do when I'm playing brutal? Like, because I want to avoid doing that.
Right.
So anyway, I'll ramble on story about why it's important to keep stats, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to miss a tournament round ever," or fun rounds that I put out, I'm going to put those in because, oh, Nick showed me this thing. It only takes 7 or 8 minutes, and I get this rich data, or he's getting this rich data. So, I could go on that forever because I have a lot of passion for that. I would love to go back right now to coach juniors because I have so much fun, and I know you're fantastic at it. I too love to hang around. I'm a giant kid. And I love to hang around and do that stuff. Right now, I live in the PGA Tour world and Corn Ferry Tour and some of the top amateurs in the world in the PGA Tour Americas, etc. But I could go back tomorrow and have the most fun in the world doing that sort of stuff as well.
I think that's our give back, right? Like when I was a kid, we didn't have coaching. And I got into coaching junior golf because, we had 10 guys at our club at Canada Lakes in Ottawa, and 8 of us got scholarships. No coaching,
Incredible.
a driving range that wasn't more than 230 yards. So we would just go play. And I'm not going to say we tracked our stats, but every day you'd put your score in the computer and you'd look up and you're like, hey, this guy shot 74 and I shot 75 and I'm in second. I got to go back out, even at 7 o'clock. I got 2.5 hours to go try and beat this guy. So my name's in the computer. That's what changed our whole behavior
sure.
around golf. So I like the idea of having numbers because how many golfers tell you, oh, I'm a field player? Okay, so you feel like you're good at your short game. Yeah, my short game's fine. And then you actually realize that you never get up and down, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
for
like
sure.
saying, well, I'm successful, I'm wealthy. Well, what's the number? Because
Yeah.
someone else might be over here, and it's a way to benchmark and figure out where you are. So when you talked about Mackenzie, where hey, when he shoots under 65, let's check out the stat that he blew out of the water
Yeah.
compared to when he shot over 76. Was it that same stat that was higher? Because that should be a light bulb going off saying, hey, this is either my good or my bad days is right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And for a guy like Mackenzie, it was two things. One, he almost always putts good. Like he's one of the best putters on the planet Earth. But the big difference was for him was what we talked about earlier, mistakes off the tee. When Mac doesn't make mistakes off the tee, he's almost always going to be in there. He's a little bit wild. He's gotten a lot longer now. I don't coach him now. Like I said, he's like my son, but he's gotten way longer now, which has benefited him. But again, when he eliminates 1 and 2 shot errors with his length, he's going to play great almost every single time. And when he's making mistakes off the tee, it's going to kill him. Yeah, and to your point, that's an unreal story about how you had all those players at your home course get college scholarships, and you just were pushing each other. You're just trying to beat each other's brains in and having a lot of fun. You're super competitive. And so back to your question about a great junior program, I think it's about having one of the other things that's so key because people will say, "Hey, Derek, how did you, and it's not me. How did you help get some of these players onto the PGA Tour? What was your secret sauce or your recipe?" And I'm like, well, first of all, it wasn't Derek Ingram. I can guarantee you that. But one thing I really did do is I set up a really good environment for them to be, to compete against each other, have a lot of fun against each other, and push each other. Uh, I made nobody worse, thankfully. I made a lot of guys better or helped a lot of guys get better by setting up the right environment. And then once in a while, just being there, and being there at the good times is kind of key. But for me, I've always felt like it's more important to be there for our athletes when they're struggling than when it's good. Everybody's there when it's good for them, but
Yeah.
no, very few people are there when it's struggling or where it's bad for them.
Yeah, I've always thought like, the junior golfer just needs to know that you're going to put their arm around them and say, "Hey, it's okay. Like we got this together." Because so many kids feel like they're on an island by themselves and they're unique. And oh, I'm the only one that has this problem. And I love that part of mentoring juniors. We have three awesome juniors at the club. Two of them have just signed scholarships, and
Awesome.
one is on his way to something really special.
Yeah.
He's young right now, but he's on his way to something great for these golfers that are going to go to college for the first time. I mean, I played college golf. I've given them, my little bits of ideas, but what advice could you give these two guys going off to college next year, moving away from home and living an NCAA tour life?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm jealous and happy for them. And I know I can just see you light up when you talk about that. And you've been giving back and doing that for 20 years. So you're the perfect guy to be mentoring a lot of these people. But I would say the number one thing is don't forget what got you there. I think a lot of times players, they get there and they look around, they go, okay, I probably have to change everything. I've got a new college coach here and he's going to, and sometimes depending on the program, the new college coach is super excited and wants to change everything as well. And so
Yeah.
I would be really keen aware. A lot of our players that have gone there and just started over and said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to have gotten a lot worse and really struggled for 1, 2, 3 years."
Mhm.
I would say know what really works for you, and that's where having a friend or a coach or a mentor is really critical, and really work that, and then be open to 5% change a year or possibly 10% at most. But don't change 90% and try and keep 5% or not the same. So that's number one. And I don't want to be a boring old guy, but you can probably do a really good job at two of these three things. You can probably be a great athlete and be a starter on your team and play every tournament. You can probably do a really good job in the classroom. And the third thing you can do really, really good is be a fantastic partier and social life. And there's a time and place for everything. And I'm certainly not saying don't do any of that, but pick your spots, be really clear about and have good intentions about when you're going to pick your spots. And I would say limit those to the beginning until you feel comfortable in that environment. And I'd really focus on the first two more. But again, you had your fun, we had our fun, but we were smart about it as opposed to, blowing an entire year by, only partying and not doing any school and golf.
Right. And I think that might be easier if you're not a starter. And if you're a starter on the team, I think that you're around a few guys that you're traveling with that have
Yeah.
their own positive habits that, you can feed off of. I mean, when I was in university in Kentucky, it was all about what does this other guy do better than me? Recognize
Yeah.
where I might be better than the other guys and maybe offer mentorship if I had to, or well,
Yeah.
friendship really at the time. But, what is it that, the other guy does better? And what does this player do better? And we had a guy on our team that, was really good, like a number two or number three guy. And man, he didn't hit the ball more than 220 yards, but
Wow.
somehow he would be able to shoot 74. And it didn't take long for me to realize that this guy could get up and down from a garbage can.
Yeah.
So my intention for practice was, hey, I'm going to go practice with Mark because this
Yeah.
guy is going to show me some stuff. And just by watching, right, the monkey see, monkey do approach, just by watching, I could pick up a few things here and there. And I did that all the way across the board through all the different guys that were there. We
Yeah.
had a guy that definitely did number three. He partied better than everybody. So when we had an off week or two, hey guys, we're going to go hang out with this guy. So we picked that up, pretty quickly. And I think that's a big thing that, if I jump back to my members for a sec, this is what they can do better is that when they go play with their regular guys,
Yes.
what does Tony do better than you?
Mm.
Watch how he does it and maybe pick up some of that. It could be hitting it straighter. It could be what bunker game. It could be his lag putts, but there's
Yeah.
something there and pick his brain.
Yeah.
Bring him into the club after, buy him a Negroni and say, how do you do this?
Yeah.
So this is the kind of stuff that I think that rather than,
That's
the
smart.
pros teaching everybody, you can learn from your peers.
No, super smart in the college environment doing that, and there's no question that's setting up the right atmosphere, the right environment, and then being open to that, and again stealing the stuff that's going to help you get better, and then putting a bullet in the stuff that's not going to help you, and doing it at your club level as well. There's probably some guys who are unreal at short putts, inside of 10 feet. They're constantly making, they're
Yeah.
just so clean inside of 10 feet, and other people are probably, not making their share of those or and even three putting sometimes. And so learning from that guy, like you said, ask him, hey, how do you do that? What do you focus on? What are you doing there? And they might just say, I don't know, I'm just really, really good at that. Or they might give you a bit of gold that's going to help you get way better. And
Yeah.
you nail it. There's little pieces you can steal from everybody.
Yeah.
Sometimes too, like people do stuff and they're really, really consistent because they do it all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and because they do it all the time, they're really consistent. And so their ball flight looks the same every time. It's very predictable. They don't lose many balls. They, maybe doesn't look all that sexy, but it's super effective. And so there's some little nuggets you can steal from, yeah, your friends,
Yeah.
the better players at the club, the professionals at the club. And again, I always feel like, we're trying to add a couple things. I'm doing really good at this stuff. This stuff I want to keep the same. I don't want to blow that up, but I want to add and steal a little bit from everybody to help myself get a little bit better.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And I think, there's a lot of, our members who might not know what they do. So you might have to
Yeah.
buy them 3 drinks after the round to get it out of them.
I love it.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap this up a little bit, I've asked all the guys to kind of give us, just an idea of maybe flipping the mindset a little bit to being a better player. I think the easiest one is to, not react too much after your shot. One of my videos today was that everything starts with your post-shot routine. If
Yeah.
you get upset at shot one, you're going to have a hangover for a couple holes remembering that thing. So
Yeah.
what type of mindset could you give, the average golfer to help them along their way? And I think this usually leads to some inspiration.
Hmm.
Might be a
Um,
big one.
yeah, it's a good question. So I would think that approaching the round with a plan. I love having a bit of a game plan. I'm not above writing it down on the back of a business card or a little bit of note to have in my pocket that I wouldn't share with anybody, but my keys for the day. And I think it's really key. It could be positive self-talk. It could be doing my routine. It could be, it could be being optimistic out there. It could be like, being very committed on every shot, like just two or three, probably actually not two, but three or four or five things, but not technical things. These are things we actually control in a day.
Yeah.
And I jot those down. And these are the things I do when I play my best golf or my better golf. And you know, like being a good bounce back player. If you make a mistake, you have a bad hole, but the next hole, like, okay, let's get back to it. You know, a couple deep breaths, boom, fairway, try and get it around the green, see if I get a par or birdie here.
Yep.
Could be, I love that optimistic, you know, because there's two ways of looking at every shot. You hit a bad shot, and on the way up, you know, you're just pounding yourself in the ground. Derek, I can't believe how bad you are. You suck. You're the worst player ever. You're just a joke. You know, that's just horrific. Or there's like, and you're for sure going to make bogey or double here. This could be even a triple. That's X. Or you're walking up and you're like, dude, I didn't want to do that. That was brutal. I wish I didn't do that. But let's see what I can do with this thing. This is going to be kind of a cool challenge. This is going to be an
Yes.
interesting challenge. And let's see if I can, you know, let's see, hey, you know, let's see if I can make a par out of this or make a bogey out of this. And so those little things I think that you can jot down and you can remind yourself like 4 or 5 things that you write in the back of a card, put it in your pocket. You don't tell anybody about that. It's your little secret weapon. It's your little game plan. And they're not technique things, but they're more how to play the game and how to score the game things. And some of their attitude, you know, and I think that's to me, I would be the biggest separator
Yeah.
is having a bit of a game plan for each day. And I would never advertise that. But if you looked, you know, Nick, if you peered inside the yards book of a PGA Tour player and virtually every single one of them, you're going to see 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 little points like that that are gold.
Yeah.
And and they're not technical things, but they're little things to help them with their attitude or their, you know,
Like a
their,
mantra.
yeah, love
Right.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
love
like
it.
when I worked with Gary Gilchrist at his academy, he used to always say, "You've got to be your own best cheerleader because no one else is going to do it for you."
For sure. You gotta act like your own best friend. When you hit a bad shot, your own best friend isn't going, Nick, you're so effing bad. I can't believe how bad you are, dude. You're just ridiculous. No, he's gonna say, hey, Nick, bad shot. Let's see what we can do with that one, dog. That's gonna be kind of cool. I've seen you get it up and down from over there. And I've seen Corey's caddy, Danny Saul, who you might know.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes when Corey's got a pitch shot or a chip shot, he'll be like, oh, he'll look at it, he's like, oh, I think he could chip this one in, Core. Like, and it's just like the little vibe that he gets. And all of a sudden, I see Corey in there taking some practice things. Instead of how hard the shot is, I see him picturing trying to pitch it in or chip it in. I'm like, wow, great stuff. So you
That's
want to be
awesome.
your own best friend out there? I loved what Gilchrist said.
I think that's awesome. Derek, you've given us some awesome stuff today. I really appreciate it. You hit so many words and so many points that I've been talking about so far this season. This blends in so well with the attitude or behavior I'm trying to instill, and like you said, the environment. This has been amazing. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Nick, a lot of fun catching up and getting to see you again. Hopefully, see you at the Canadian Open coming up. People can follow me or get me at Tour Habits or D Ingram Golf. But love this. What an unreal idea you're doing. So congrats on that. And it's great to see you again, dog.
Thank you. I will be there Tuesday morning. I'll come look for you.
Love it. Love it.
Awesome. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Cheers.